I walked home in a daze. And why wouldn't I be? When I got to the office as usual, I found I no longer had a place there. Um, I just heard about my sudden termination today. We've already sent the termination notice to your home. Haven't you checked it yet? Who could hear something like that from a company rep and feel nothing? No one, that's for sure. What awaited me was, welcome back. You're early. No, maybe you're late would be more fitting in this case. It was a woman in an expensive looking suit with a sly grin on her face. Daniel, are you home? Awoken by a gentle knock, I dragged myself heavily to the front door. Sorry, I must have dozed off from exhaustion. Good evening, Mrs. Landlord. Sorry for coming by so late. And for disturbing you when you're tired. Standing outside was a small woman, a bit hunched over, with a slightly worried expression, holding a pot in both hands. Oh no, it's fine. Please don't worry about it. So today, this is just some leftovers. But if you'd like, you see, I live alone, so when I cook, it's always way too much. Are you sure? I really appreciate it. I know your work's demanding, but when you're young, you have to eat well. It's tough if you get sick. I thanked her and watched as Mrs. Landlord, who sometimes shares her dinners like this, left. I set the still warm pot on the table and decided to have a slightly late dinner. As I quietly enjoyed the meal, I found myself thinking, Daniel Moore, that's my name. I grew up in a modest home, with my mother raising my sister and me on her own. When I said I'd start working right after high school, Mom convinced me to take out student loans and go to college. I managed to graduate and got a job at an IT company, but of course, loans need to be paid back. With a modest salary that's chipped away by various expenses, plus loan payments, my monthly budget's pretty tight. I feel bad for the kindness Mrs. Landlord shows, but that's why I live in this rundown apartment. That sums up my life right now. Good morning, Mrs. Landlord. Oh, good morning. Oh, thanks for dinner last night. I'll bring the pot back tonight. No rush. Whenever you have time, I know things are tough, and you're probably tired after work, right? No. I enjoyed the wonderful meal. Is that so? Well, don't feel like you have to rush, okay? Oh, outside the apartment, I spoke with Mrs. Landlord, who was sweeping, but she paused and stared at me closely. What's going on? You've got some serious bags under your eyes. Oh, well, after last night, I remembered some unfinished work and ended up working until morning. Oh dear, overdoing it isn't good, you know. Sorry to make you worry, but, well, usually I just come home and fall asleep right away. Honestly, over the past few years, I can't remember doing much after work or on weekends. I'm not someone who has a clear hobby or anything, but before I know it, another day's already here. I feel myself lying in bed, but suddenly, the weekend's gone, or it's already the next morning. It's a strange thing, I think. Really? Oh, isn't it about time? Are you all set? Oh, right. Well then, I'll wash the pot and return it tonight. See you later. Take care out there. Honestly, I want to talk to someone about what I'm going through. Things at work aren't exactly smooth sailing. But spilling all this to Mrs. Landlord first thing in the morning feels a bit off. With my thoughts clouded, I started walking toward the station. On my way home one evening, I barely made the last train, exhausted from more unreasonable demands at work. Just as I reached the small park near my place, I heard a voice. Even though it was past midnight, I could hear what sounded like a child's voice, so I stopped in front of the park. It was a rundown park, hardly used by anyone. There, I saw a little girl and a woman who seemed to be her mother, watching her with a gentle expression. But wait, this could be a bad situation, couldn't it? Just because she looks like her mother doesn't mean she actually is. She could be a kidnapper. Or maybe they're in some kind of troubled household. Seeing a child and a woman in the park at this hour couldn't be a good sign. But I couldn't help feeling curious. Well, worst case scenario, I could always call the police if something seemed off. There were ways to handle it. Thinking that, I walked into the park. The little girl was talking. But even though she was playing, she seemed to know it wasn't okay to be loud at this hour, so she kept her voice as low as possible. Cautiously, I stood next to the woman crouched by the girl. Excuse me. Oh yes, I'm so sorry if we were being noisy. We'll leave now. No, please wait. I didn't mean it like that, I don't know why. But I stopped them from leaving. Was there something that made me want to know more? I couldn't even tell myself why. Hearing my words, the woman paused. The little girl, still holding her hand, kept her head down, and the situation grew a bit awkward. I just thought, having your child out here at this hour might be, well, a bit concerning. Dorothy, can you keep playing quietly like before? The little girl, called Dorothy, looked up at her mother with a slightly tense expression, nodded, and ran toward the sandbox. We watched her go, then sat on a nearby bench. I thought to myself how light they traveled for a mother and daughter. Not sure why I sat down, I listened as she slowly began to explain. I know this isn't something to tell someone I just met, but we were evicted. What? Oh, not today. A few days ago. A few days then. Where have you been sleeping? Well, aside from my parents, I don't know anyone around here, so we've been staying here and at another park. I swallowed my words in surprise. She and her little girl were living outdoors after being evicted. At first, I thought, what kind of mother would do that? But hearing her speak, it was clear something serious had happened. I held back my initial, thoughtless words and encouraged her to continue. I've been looking for a place during the day, but, well, I don't have a job, and of course, nobody is going to rent to me without one. Mommy. Oh, what is it? Are you done playing in the sand? I'm hungry. Oh, right. You must be hungry. I'm sorry, just a little longer. Hearing this exchange, I finally made up my mind and stood up. If it's okay with you, would you like to come to my place tonight? Oh no, I couldn't possibly go to the home of someone I just met. Oh, please don't worry. It's just that your daughter mentioned she's hungry, and well, leaving you outside this late would bother my conscience. My words were all over the place. It probably sounded more like an excuse than a genuine offer. But after thinking it over, she looked at her daughter, who was still staring up at me, then nodded, accepting my invitation. But there was something important I needed to tell them both. Yes, I felt it was the most important thing to say right now. So, pressing a hand to my aching stomach, I asked them. I know I was trying to sound all noble just now, but to be honest, I don't have much left this month, so I can't exactly treat you to a big meal. Hearing my words trail off, Both of them looked surprised and then started giggling. Yeah, laughing makes it easier on me too. Goodbye to all my money for this month. A grand total of $3.90. Sigh. There was a corner shop 5 minutes from the park, so I used what cash I had to buy some food. And I took the mother and daughter I just met back to my place. Of course, the clerk gave us a look like, "What's going on here?" So I avoided talking and hurried out of the store. They're probably gossiping about it now. That shop was so close and convenient, but maybe I'll lay low for a while. I'm so sorry for the food. It's totally fine. Don't worry about it. My payday's coming soon anyway. But it's your food. I always fast right before payday, so it's no big deal. Of course, that's a lie. There are still a couple of days left until payday, but I can't admit that. So I looked up at the night sky, trying not to let any tears escape. The stars sure are beautiful, and with that, we reached my place, and I invited them in. Sorry, my place is pretty small. Oh, not at all. Thank you so much for inviting us. Don't worry about it. It's really helpful. Mom, it's tiny in here. Hey, that's not polite. Well, it is true. In the room, only the hum of the microwave filled the silence. I was hoping it'd be over soon. This awkward silence was unbearable. About a minute later, the microwave finally stopped. Relieved at the chance to break the silence, I rushed over to it. Oh, I grabbed 2 sets of chopsticks. But your daughter, she's fine. You don't really think about when kids start using chopsticks. Unless you're in a situation like this. Relieved, I set out 2 pairs of chopsticks on the table. I placed the half-price microwaved meal on the table and said, "Go ahead." The little girl, who had seemed cautious at first, slowly reached for the food with her chopsticks and took a bite. Whether it was that delicious or maybe it was her first real meal in a while, I wasn't sure, but soon she was eating with full concentration. Her mother's "don't eat so fast or you'll choke" didn't slow her down one bit as she happily ate her fill. I was a bit worried that her mom might not get any food at this rate, but the mother just watched her with a relieved expression. They finished eating and are now taking a shower. It seemed she felt bad about not having bathed for a few days. So even though I'm not the most thoughtful person, I understood and offered them the shower. I don't fully know their situation, but I feel like I'm already on this boat with them. If they feel ready to talk about it, I guess they will. Anyway, what should I do? About my dinner. And since the little girl ate more than half, her mom must still be hungry too. Just as I was thinking that, I heard a knock. My place is a one-room apartment, so knocks are rare unless someone's actually at the door. I opened the front door. "You're home late again tonight. Here's some extra dinner. I'm sure you haven't eaten yet since you just got back." "Oh, thank you, as always." "And tonight, you have guests, don't you?" Mrs. Landlord looked curious for a moment, but noticing the extra shoes by the entrance, seemed to understand and said, "Oh, just a moment, please." She quickly headed back to her room. Wondering what she was up to, I set the food she brought on the table. She returned soon after. "These are snacks my grandkids love. It's too late for them now, so give them to your guests tomorrow morning." "Thank you very much. You could have told me you had company, you know. You're full of surprises." "Oh, look at me being nosy. Well, I'll be going now. Take care. I hadn't said anything, but Mrs. Landlord seemed to misunderstand something, leaving with a slight smile on her face. In any case, I decided I'd properly thank her another day. Now, maybe both her and I could actually have dinner tonight. Watching the little girl sleep peacefully on the futon, her mother seemed to finally be at ease. Thank you for the bath and the dinner too. Oh, no problem. Mrs. Landlord brings food almost daily, worrying about me living alone. Is that so? She's very kind. I'll have to thank her properly myself. Oh well, I can handle that. No, I need to express my gratitude properly. I thought, she's really a serious person. Startled by her sudden reply, I looked over at her, speechless. Wait, I hadn't really looked before, but this woman is incredibly beautiful. Apparently, she didn't have any belongings, so she probably wasn't even wearing makeup. But now that things were settling down, my mind started noticing unnecessary details. And it hit me. She's absolutely stunning. Um, yes, yes. Oh, is something wrong? No, no, nothing at all. My voice cracked without meaning to, but she found it amusing, stifling a small laugh. You're quite entertaining. Oh, may I ask your name? Daniel. Daniel, is it? I'm Linda, and this is Dorothy. Just so you know, we're mother and daughter. Right, of course, Linda. Yes, what is it? Well, I know it's not much, but if you haven't found a place to stay yet, you're welcome to use this place for a while. I couldn't impose like that. No, really, it's no bother. I'm gone during the day anyway, and when I get home, I'm usually so tired that I just sleep until work the next day. Not that I'm offering because I'd like to spend more time with her just because she's more beautiful than I expected. Not at all. I swear, that's not it. It just didn't feel right to ignore them after learning they had no place to go. Really. Not that I was thinking, wow, she's actually really pretty. Not at all. Are you sure? Yes, Anne. Anne. Well, Dorothy too. But two women sleeping outside isn't safe. You're right. So until you find a new place or job, please feel free to stay here. It's small and messy, but it's yours for now. And so, Linda and Dorothy started living with me for a while. A few days later, one night near the last train, Linda greeted me as I came home. Naturally, Dorothy was already fast asleep. Thanks for your hard work. You're late again tonight. Oh, and dinner's ready. Thank you. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but the work I've been getting lately has been quite a handful. Is it tough? Yeah, pretty much. We had a good relationship with this client, but their CEO passed away recently. The new CEO is the former one's son, and now he's constantly changing the project's direction from the original plan. It's frustrating. Oh, I see. That does sound difficult. As I ate the dinner Linda made, I found myself venting about work. By the time I finished, I'd shared quite a bit. Though I didn't get into specific details, I realized mentioning individual names wasn't ideal. After finishing, I brought my plate to the sink and started washing. I can take care of the dishes tomorrow if you leave them. No, I couldn't. You made dinner, so I can at least do this. Then, I'll let you do that, so what did President Thomas say? Oh, well, he decided he'd thought of a better idea than what we initially planned. So now the whole project's direction has shifted. and we're basically starting from scratch. I'm not an expert, but wasn't an almost finished, and now you're redoing it from the start. Exactly. Linda, likely trying not to wake Dorothy, stood beside me listening, her expression a mix of concern and empathy. I'd never had anyone to vent to like this before, so I was already grateful just to have someone listen. But seeing her look even more upset about it than I was, I hurried to put on a smile. Sorry for the boring talk. No, it's not boring at all. If you need someone to listen, I'm here anytime. With that, she added, well, I'll go to bed now, good night, and headed over to where Dorothy was sleeping. Strangely, after letting out my frustrations, I felt a bit lighter, thinking I should thank her tomorrow. I finished washing up, took a shower, and went to bed. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in years, a fresh start to the day. Linda was already up, making breakfast, while Dorothy was waiting for her mom's cooking to be ready. They both greeted me. As I was about to get ready to leave for work, Dorothy came over to me. Daniel. Yes, Dorothy. Well, I hadn't really thanked you properly yet. Mom told me yesterday that I needed to, so thank you. Did I do something Dorothy should thank me for? When Mom and I were in trouble, you helped us out. Blushing, she said it, and I just smiled, saying, I see, as I patted her head. Sorry, if this place were a bit bigger, you'd probably have more space to play. No way, I'm never lonely because Mom's always here. And sometimes Daniel comes home early, so I always have someone to talk to. These past few days, I've made an effort to talk to Dorothy whenever I finished work early. I thought it might feel a bit lonely to be around each other, but hardly ever talk. At first, Dorothy didn't respond much, but gradually she started talking to me on her own. It made me happy, feeling like I was finally being accepted, even just a little. All right, if I can come home early, let's chat a lot. I'm glad to have you both around too. Yeah. With their cheerful goodbyes, I headed off to work. I don't know what it is. Maybe just the fact that I was living alone until recently, but I felt this pleasant warmth as I walked to the station. A few more weeks passed since my life turned upside down, and before I knew it, Dorothy and I were goofing around together. No matter how tired I was from work, Linda would listen to me vent. She'd always encourage me with a smile, saying, Don't worry, things will get better soon. Even if it seemed a bit optimistic, her words lifted my spirits. So I simply responded with, Thank you. It wasn't just that. I also noticed a small change in myself at work. Linda, who had been listening to my work complaints, had actually given me some advice. I've never seen Dorothy chat so happily with someone like this before. Really? Yes, you're the first, Daniel. Well, that makes me happy. I'm quite shy myself, but with you, Daniel, I feel I can speak openly and share my thoughts easily. Really, I don't mean to sound arrogant, but maybe sharing ideas and talking things out could even be useful for your job. Something along those lines. Well, I'm more of a tech guy, so that's not usually my work. But yeah, hearing that from you, Linda, actually gave me a bit more confidence. I didn't want to ask where she saw that in me, but as someone who'd never received such positive feedback, it sparked my curiosity. So, I tried sharing some ideas during a meeting, and to my surprise, they approved my suggestion. Since then, I've somehow ended up explaining projects ideas and highlighting tech points to the sales team. and it's been well received. I couldn't help but notice that Dorothy seemed a bit lonelier than before. When I asked her, she'd only say, "I'm fine. Dorothy's a good girl, so I won't be selfish." Something didn't sit right with me, but I figured Linda probably felt that things couldn't stay this way. I assumed she'd been spending her days looking for work or a new place. In fact, I'd seen Mrs. Landlord chatting warmly with Dorothy several times, making me wonder if she was keeping an eye on her. Still, as an outsider, I didn't feel it was my place to comment on their situation, so I chose to stay silent. Sensing that I shouldn't meddle, I simply continued my routine, vaguely feeling that I should prepare myself for the end of this life together. But then, one day, my ordinary life suddenly collapsed. Sir. Oh, morning. What's up? Um, my desk seems. Well, it seems to be missing. Yeah, I figured. What do you mean, you figured? What? Didn't you hear? You're leaving the company as of today, right? This can't be right. I'd never once discussed resigning. Sure, I'd wondered how long this job would last, or thought about switching to something more stable and manageable. But I'd never actually mentioned it to my supervisor or anyone higher up. Wait, I haven't heard anything about this. You're kidding, right? Hang on, let me check. Here it is. Look at this. He handed me his phone, and there it was in an internal email, my resignation, effective today. Sir, about this email. Let's see. It came out last week. Right. It went out as a company-wide email. What? Yeah, I figured something urgent must have come up, so I didn't press you on it. Wait, it's not true. He looked just as confused as I was. Realizing I wouldn't get anywhere like this, I asked him if I could speak to the CEO directly. He called Margaret, the CEO, as secretary to arrange it, seeming flustered by the unexpected request. After about 15 minutes, Margaret arrived to meet me in the conference room. Thank you for waiting, Daniel. What did you want to discuss? Well, I just heard today about my sudden termination. Oh, we sent out an internal email and also mailed the termination notice to your home. Didn't you check it? I didn't see it, but this is so sudden. Isn't there supposed to be a 30-day notice for terminations? Yes, generally that's the case, but this. Well, how should I put it? Margaret trailed off, clearly troubled. But I couldn't just nod and accept being fired out of the blue, so I pressed on. Still, when she said, it was the CO's decision, my resolve started to crumble. I know I'm not exceptional, but I thought I'd been giving my best. And now, this treatment. It's just too much. I figured any more talking would be pointless, so I left the office, my head spinning with, what am I going to do now? Where do I even start if I want to report this as unfair dismissal? No, I don't have the mental space to figure it out right now. I'll go home, calm down, and think things through. In a daze, I decided to head home. I couldn't even grasp what time it was or what I was doing as I made my way back. But then I stopped. In front of my rundown apartment was a luxury car I'd never seen before. Why now, of all times? Slightly irritated, I tried to avoid the car and enter the building when I heard a familiar voice. Oh, Daniel, what's going on? Oh, well, you see, I forgot something. You forgot something. I see, Mom. Daniel forgot something. Dorothy called out to her mother with cheerful innocence. Now what? Without a job, I wouldn't be able to let them stay here much longer. Soon, I'd be evicted myself. No matter how kind Mrs. Landlord was, she wouldn't allow someone without income to stay. And I couldn't bear that thought either. As I watched Dorothy, who was happily calling for her mom, I felt at a loss. Then Linda appeared at the door of my apartment. Seeing her in a new, unfamiliar suit, I couldn't help but stare. I knew it was out of place given the situation, but I couldn't help thinking how beautiful she looked. "Welcome back. You're early." No, maybe "you're late" would be more appropriate here. "Sorry. Is this what you forgot?" With a sly smile, Linda approached me, holding some mail from the company. "How did you?" "How well, I asked for it, of course." "What are you talking about?" "I told you, didn't I? Things would get better soon." No. I thought that was just encouragement." "Oh, right. I didn't tell you the details, did I?" "What does that mean?" "Thank you for waiting. Finally, everything is ready." "Ready? It's better if we don't talk here, please. Get in the car." Without understanding, I was gently but firmly pushed into the luxury car parked in front of my apartment by Linda and Dorothy. A month ago, I reached out to my uncle to let him know Dorothy and I were safe. As the car drove, Linda began explaining the situation to me. "Recently, I lost my father. My mother had already passed, so it was just me, Dorothy, and my brother left. I planned to face the future together with my brother, but suddenly he threw us out of the house. I had nothing when he forced us out so abruptly, and you helped us then, Daniel." "I see." My uncle, who lived far away, had no idea. He was worried when Dorothy and I suddenly disappeared from the house. So, when I saw him, I told him everything. He assured me of his full support and then told me about a gift my father had left me. With that, she handed me a business card. It read, "Linda Taylor," along with the title Chief Executive Officer. I couldn't quite grasp what was going on and looked at her in confusion. She gave a small nod, smiling. "It seems my father left me his company. Originally, the plan was for me to take over the business, but due to some misunderstanding, my brother took control and forced me out. So, when I consulted my uncle, he introduced me to one of the group companies. So, you're now the president of that company. I thought I should have told you immediately, Daniel, but, well, I found it a bit hard to say. Mom didn't want to be separated from Daniel, right?" Dorothy, who had been quietly sitting, looked at both of us with a mischievous smile. "Hey, Dorothy." "But Mom told me." "If there's something you want to say it with confidence. I love Daniel and want to stay with him, so I thought I should say it. But since Mom wasn't saying it, I thought I'd go ahead and say it first." "Dorothy, you're right. I need to say it properly, Daniel. Actually, I've heard all about your work from my brother's secretary." "Your brother's secretary?" "Yes, Linda Thomas. That's my maiden name." "Thomas. Wait, what? You mean President Thomas?" "Yes, the former president was my father, and the current president is my younger brother." Unbeknownst to me, I had apparently been venting about her own brother to her. It was an awkward realization, but she must have felt something about it as well. That explained why she looked so concerned whenever I talked about work. At first, I tried not to think much of it. It was your job, something important to you, and I didn't want to interfere. But listening to you and seeing you come home worn out, I couldn't help but feel a bit upset myself. Is this just a bit upset kind of thing? No, to be honest, I was really furious. Well, thank you, I guess. So, after talking it over with my uncle, I decided why not hire you at my company? Is that why I got fired? For a moment, her smile sent a chill down my spine. I made a decision long ago. I won't hold back on something I really want. Wait, but I was technically with a client company. Isn't it a bit extreme too? My father had a lot of connections, so naturally, many people know me too. The CEO at your company and I happen to be well acquainted. Actually, it wasn't just a moment. I was really starting to see how intimidating she could be. But at that point, everything finally clicked. I understood where we were headed, why I'd received that seemingly unfair termination notice, and whether this could really be considered an unjust dismissal. If you must, you're welcome to take legal action. I know I've pushed things quite forcefully, and for that, I sincerely apologize, but yes, Daniel, if you could forgive this decision I made alone, would you please consider staying by my side? She looked at me earnestly, waiting for my response. Was that a proposal? Miss Dorothy, please, a little quiet, if you will. Boo. My answer was already clear. I thought of that date when I'd resigned myself to the idea of eventually parting from the two of them. I had assumed I didn't have any choice. This morning, I went to the office, only to find I'd been terminated, and that thought had consumed me since. So, my answer was clear. Of course, I'll gladly work under you from now on, Linda. Some might call it an unlawful dismissal, perhaps. But if I, as the person involved, am okay with it, then it might seem forceful, but I have no objections. So, calling it unfair seems a bit exaggerated to me. Now, I work at the company where Linda is the CEO. Previously, I was focused solely on technical work, but she encouraged me to join the marketing department. Using the knowledge I gained from my old job, I now work day and night to promote our products and let more people know about them. As for my former company, it didn't suffer much. In fact, it now outsources to the company I'm at. At least, that's my understanding. However, the real blow hit the company I used to handle, the one now run by Thomas's son. Although it was part of the same group as Linda's company, the internal evaluations couldn't have been more different. Before long, that company's performance plummeted, and Linda ended up acquiring and merging it. Her brother, former President Will Thomas, was forced to resign, taking responsibility for the poor results. With that, this sudden series of events seemed to come to a close. Hey, Daniel, when will you become Dorothy's daddy? Sitting on my lap. Dorothy, enjoying her mom's delicious cooking, suddenly asked me this. Hey, Dorothy, don't put Daniel on the spot like that. Dorothy, you've gotten pretty direct without us noticing. Direct? I don't know what that means. So, when will you become my daddy? Linda, Dorothy, and I are still living in that old apartment. Daniel, are you in? Yep. Oh, Linda, here's today's share. Thank you. You've really settled in. Actually, the landlady adapted way too fast, didn't she? Looks like you're the only one left behind, Daniel. Cheeky little girl. Daniel, about that. Perhaps it's time to, well, make it official. The night is still young. Now free from catching the last train, our evenings continue just like this. Oh, you're wondering what happened between Linda and me. Well, let's just say, yeah. According to Linda, she's decided not to hold back on things she really wants.